All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's nice to see everyone. Certainly nice to be meeting and talking about the fact that we're all back in school and not something we're still planning for. So it certainly is nice to see everyone. Do roll call, and again, I know that a number of people reached out to me and are not going to be able to make it today. But I'll go through the list. Eva Gallup. You can just say here. Mike Schlehofer.
I'm here.
And Scott Butson, our Director of Technology.
Hey, guys.
And Penny Briscoe. I don't think Dr. Briscoe is going to be able to make it, but Chris Mader, are you filling in for her?
I am. Hi, everyone.
Thank you for joining us, Chris. Dr. Sarusi.
Here.
And Christine Hartwig, Special Ed Director.
She's in another meeting.
Okay. And Dan Trudeau, our Athletic Director. Okay, let's see, Dan. And Mark Rubera, our SRO. Nancy Analik, high school nurse.
Present.
Hi, Nance.
Hello.
And Caitlin Morse, middle school nurse.
Here.
Caitlin. Kim Kane, middle school teacher.
Here.
And Jillian Bellinger, middle school PE.
Here.
And Greg LaChance, high school math teacher.
Here.
And Nick Kokis. I know Nick, our band director, will not be able to make it this afternoon. Ethan Spinelli, high school teacher. I don't see Ethan. Natalie Bradley, paraprofessional. Let's see, Natalie. Steve Pizzato, also paraprofessional.
Present.
Hi, Steve.
Hey.
And Melissa Gilquist.
Here.
Great, thank you. Jenna Shell Oatman. I don't think Jenna Shell was going to be able to make it. Kathy Scopus, parent.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Kathy.
Hi, everybody.
Marcel Groves. She also just emailed me, and I don't think she was going to be able to make it. Dana Chmielewski, our student rep.
Here.
Hey, Dana. And Lily Shevchenko. How about, I know Teresa emailed me and she wasn't able to make it. Amir Ahmed.
Here.
Great. Good to see you. Kathleen Goodwin. Okay, our board rep, I don't think she was able to make it. And Kate Caselli, our food service rep.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Kate. And Ethan, I saw that you were able to join us.
I wouldn't miss it, Scott. You know I wouldn't miss this for the world. So I'm here. I'm here ready to go. Hi, everyone.
Is there anyone else that came in late that I called but wasn't or is here but I didn't call? I think we're all good. Are people okay if we skip the pledge? In that we don't have a full group? Okay. So once again, welcome. It's good to see everybody. Do we have anyone who would like to comment at all during our public comments?
I would like to. I'm a student.
Hi, Rachel.
Hello.
Okay, you can go ahead.
Okay. I wanted to just bring up an issue that I think has been very apparent as we're returning full in person, especially as a senior. I know some students have already brought it to the principal, and I'm sure your attention, Mr. Leslie. But the parking situation has been rather chaotic and unsafe, if you ask me. We're just concerned that there's not spots guaranteed for students who are paying now $50 a year for this parking pass. And we just think that it's kind of unacceptable for us to be paying this much money not to be guaranteed a spot on campus. I know arriving to school, students who come in late, we get to the parking lot and the senior lot is completely full. There's juniors parking in the senior lot. There's many cars without parking passes, and we have to park across the street at Vets, which I understand that's where overflow parking is. However, at the end of the day, that's the parent pickup line overflow. And if parent pickup line gets backed up at all, you're essentially stuck in your parking spot waiting upwards of 20 minutes even to get out of school. And I think that's a huge hazard that I'm not really sure how it was overlooked in the plans this summer when we redid the parking lot. But we just feel as like a senior body as a whole collectively that we should be guaranteed a parking spot with our parking pass, which is why we're proposing that perhaps we be assigned parking spots. I know some students have reached out, I know to Dr. Brysgale, and I heard that Ms. Armader was filling in for her today, but she had mentioned in email she responded to that she didn't think it would work and that there would be a domino effect if someone's spot gets taken, everyone else's spot gets taken, which is understandable. However, I think that the fact that being assigned a spot would prevent students from parking in other people's spots if they don't have a pass would be a deterrent enough to avoid the problem. I think it would diminish the problem almost entirely of students not holding a parking pass and parking on campus. And I think it would also prevent juniors from parking in lots they're not supposed to and avoid, hopefully, the potential hazards at Vets as many students have to park across there every day. I made a petition actually that I got 229 signatures on proposing this plan that people supported. And I just wanted to read a couple comments because on change.org, people can leave comments expressing their concerns. So I wanted you to hear other people's ideas as well, not just mine. So some ones that stood out was one student mentioning how the other day when she was leaving Vets, she almost backed into a parent, almost got in a car accident. People were saying they were upset that juniors were parking in the senior lot and that it took them 35 minutes to get home on the first day of school, which was normally a 12-minute drive for them. Another student said that if students are paying for the parking passes, we should be guaranteed a specific spot or else it defeats the purpose of paying. Another student expressed her concern saying the safety isn't there and that it's ridiculous. Alumni agreed. They were saying how this has been an issue at RHAM for years now, and they offered their support, hoping that we could get change this year. And again, just a lot of comments saying the same thing. So we, all 229 supporters of this petition, agree that either we be assigned a spot or patrolling of the parking lot increases so that students without parking passes get tickets and will hopefully start paying for a parking pass. The school reevaluates how many parking passes are being distributed to students versus the number of available spots on campus. And that if these needs can't be met, I think it's only fair that parking passes be refunded to students because we're paying for a service. And if it's not guaranteed that service, it's not fair to be paying for the uncertainty. So that's all I just wanted to say because obviously it's become a challenge with reopening schools. So thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, Rachel, for sharing that. And certainly this probably would have been a discussion we would have had much earlier in the year, but because it's been such a crazy year, it makes sense that now is the time that it's becoming an issue. So certainly not a problem we're going to solve at this meeting here, but we'll definitely make sure that we address the issue and make sure that everybody is happy and at least has a space and is safe. So we'll definitely look at that. But thank you for bringing that to our attention. That's really that's one of those issues that probably that does often get overlooked when you're looking at kind of something that we deal with all the time. So thank you very much for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you for hearing me out. And I look forward to seeing what you guys do in the future with it.
Great. Okay, thanks. Any other public comments? Okay, then I am going to move into Department of Health guidelines and just some of the general updates, and then we'll have representatives from the buildings and different departments kind of bring everyone up to speed on updates in their particular areas. I think I speak not just for RHAM, but for schools across the state, that one of our challenges, not just this year, but even last year, has been the lack of clear, definitive guidelines from the Departments of Health and Department of Education. And certainly that continues to be a challenge for many districts across the state. And I think probably nothing more so than the travel advisory, which is causing a great deal of agita out there amongst school districts. So there are some updates there that I think are significant. You may be aware, although most of us probably aren't because we haven't been traveling, but you may be aware that the governor had an executive order that required anyone traveling outside of the New York, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Connecticut area to quarantine upon returning from travel, and then provide a negative COVID test as well. The governor's executive orders have been sunset, so they're no longer in place. And instead, we have the Department of Ed and Department of Health travel recommendations. So they're no longer guidelines, they're simply recommendations. And what they essentially are doing right now is they're not requiring schools to mandate any type of quarantining following travel. I think, quite frankly, one of the challenges that the state had is that if they continued to require quarantining after travel, particularly with the spring break coming up and the holiday this weekend, that it may be hard to keep schools open with so many people needing to quarantine following the upcoming holidays. So right now it's simply a suggestion, and we're going to be sharing this with all of our families and students and staff tomorrow. But essentially what they're suggesting is that people may choose on their own to quarantine, or they may choose on their own to get tested for COVID following any travel, but it's no longer mandated. So we're kind of in an interesting spot there. There's a document which I shared with members of the committee, Finish Strong, which is the most updated recommendations from the state. And they really don't add anything that we haven't talked about in this group. They're basically reiterating the importance of wearing a mask, reiterating the importance of social distancing as much as possible. There is a call to individuals outside of schools to remain vigilant, and anything that our students and our staff and our families do outside of school will certainly aid us in keeping school open. So we'll be sharing this document with the community, and but there's really not too much to add there. I think most of the discussions that we've had around mask wearing, around social distancing, are still pretty much in place. The recommendations that we don't yet have, that we're anxious to receive, are the recommendations regarding senior activities such as senior proms, graduations, middle school activities such as any field days or middle school promotions. What we're looking at right now, we don't have anything in writing, but in our discussions with the Department of Health, what they've been stressing is that any type of senior activity, and this would apply to any grade level that's doing this, but because we have so many traditional senior activities, that's where the focus is. Any type of senior activity at this point should be planned outside. They are strongly recommending that we not necessarily use a banquet hall or a commercial facility. The concern there is that should the current cases continue to increase in the state, that they may begin to put more limits on the number of people that can attend events at commercial venues like banquet halls and that sort of thing. Whereas if we hold the events outside, but either on school grounds or in another area suitable outside, we'd be less likely to be hit by those limits. So it's more likely we'll be able to actually run these events if they're not scheduled at a commercial venue. So we're looking at outside events. We're looking at, currently there's a limit of 200 people per outside events. We are hoping that they'll make an exception for schools since students are together anyway during the school day. And we certainly have more than 200 students in the building at once, that they'll relax those rules a little bit so that we'll be able to say, allow the entire senior class to attend an event. So with working with those preliminary guidelines, I know we have a senior prom scheduled, an outside senior prom scheduled for June 5th. They're also suggesting, I should add, that anything we schedule should be at least 10 days distant from the next significant event. So try not to schedule a senior prom prior to AP exams, or try not to schedule the senior prom within 10 days of graduation. For the off chance that you do have an event where students get COVID and have to quarantine, you don't want to, have someone miss graduation or not be able to take an AP exam because they were unfortunate enough to catch COVID during a senior prom or something. So fortunately, our senior prom is 10 days away from graduation and after, I think, all the AP exams. So we are looking at that. And I know the senior class is looking at a senior outing. I believe it's Six Flags. We're working on graduation. Right now, graduation is limited in numbers, and we're required to provide 6 feet of distance between family members, not members within a family, but between different families. So we'll be out on the fields over the next few days. Our hope is that we'll be able to hold graduation here on campus like we typically do, have the entire senior class sitting together, and allow family members for every student to be in attendance at graduation as well. So we're hoping to get back to a much more normal looking graduation. So we're be out measuring on fields to see if we hold it on the competition field or on the softball field. We're going to be able to best spread people out. So we're waiting for the specific guidance on that, but we're hopeful that we're going to at least be able to move forward with some of our more normal activities such as prom and graduation and those things. So those are probably right now I think the major updates from the Department of Health that we're either working with currently or we're anxiously awaiting so that we can put the final touches on our planning for senior activities and graduation. And that sort of thing. And I know also for promotion in the middle school and any end of the year activities for other classes as well.
Scott, just a quick question in terms of rain. Of course, it won't rain on any of these days, but.
Thank you. Well, then that's a silly question, Kathy. So the other challenge that we're all experiencing is we recognize that we better be prepared for the worst. So as far as the proms go, any prom that we do that's a significant outside event, we're also making sure that we have tents. So for the senior prom, for example, we have a circus tent that will provide, some protection, and/or, have some rain dates available. Harder to do for a senior prom than it is for like graduation. Right now, graduation is scheduled for the 18th of June. Little harder to provide tents for graduation. There's just too many people, too far spread out. And being that we can't use our gym, which we typically would do, there we're looking at a rain date of Saturday the 19th. So for graduation, we're looking at rain date. Any prom activities, anything like that, we'll make sure that we have some kind of shelter available. So, yeah, so we're aware that we may run into that sort of thing as well. Any other
Quick question on the quarantining. Maybe a silly question, but just so we have absolute clarification on it. If the guidelines are relaxed now on folks quarantining when they come back into state, if that's going to mean that students aren't required to let you know if they're quarantining before they come back to school, but then there'll obviously be students that will choose to quarantine, or the families will choose to quarantine them. So here's a silly question: is those students will still be able to distance learn over the course of those 10 to 14 days or however long it is, correct?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Distance learning is certainly something that students will be able to do if they're quarantining.
Right. I just wanted to make sure that, because we're talking about a recommendation versus a mandate from the school that you have to quarantine, or from a doctor. So.
Right. And that'll be in the information that we're sending out tomorrow to students and families, teachers. That's clear in that information going out.
Yeah, thank you.
Great question. Yep. And we still, I should mention, we still have to quarantine if you're not vaccinated and exposed to somebody who is positive for COVID. So, as we're back in school, we are finding some instances where we do need to quarantine students and staff members due to exposure. So I should add, actually, and I'm glad you asked that question, Steve, because that reminded me of one other thing to add. We are going to, so April 1st, the students 16 and older will be eligible for vaccines. We will be eligible to host vaccine clinics for students in May. High schools will. So we're reaching out to Hartford Healthcare to see if we can't provide a closed vaccine clinic for our students sometime in May. Chatham Health, which is our local health district, has done a remarkable job of scheduling vaccine clinics for our staff, and they've done a remarkable job of scheduling them for the other age groups that have been eligible. Unfortunately, the only vaccine that is okayed for students 16 and older is the Pfizer vaccine, and Chatham Health does not have authorization to administer Pfizer. So we have to find another group that may be willing to come in to do that. So it's not that our students have to wait for RHAM to schedule a clinic. They can, once they're eligible tomorrow, they can make any appointment that they can find. But we are going to see if we can't schedule a clinic on site to just make it that much easier for students to have access to that. So more information on that coming. And any other questions on Department of Health or any of those?
Just a quick question about a potential staff member that, you said if they're not vaccinated, but what if they're only half vaccinated? Would they still have to quarantine, just out of curiosity?
Yes, you have to be 14 days beyond your second shot if you're one of the 2-shot vaccines, or 14 days after the Johnson & Johnson single shot.
Thank you.
Okay.
And Scott, just a little update in terms of what the quarantining situation looks like right now, 7 through 12. Are we noticing an uptick as the week has gone on? What kind of size groups are we looking at? Oh, I see a few smiles.
Well, if you had asked that question, Kathy, last week, I would have told you that we're pretty much zero. You know, we have the COVID, we have the COVID, you know, desktop on the website that, and last week it was zero across the board. As of about an hour ago,
Oh boy.
we have 29 students that are currently quarantined and 1 staff member.
Okay.
Yeah, and
So
it was it was and someone correct me if I'm wrong, but it was a student that COVID positive from a source outside of school, who learned of their situation, but had close contact with 29 or 28 other students, I'll assume, and a staff member. And I think your other question, Kathy, are we starting to see a spike? And again, Caitlin or Nancy, feel free to chime in, but we are. I mean, we're seeing more, we're being informed of more cases that are, you know, originating outside of school.
Right.
We still have not seen any transmission within the school, but we are definitely seeing an increase in the number of cases outside, you know, coming from outside of school. I met with the director of Chatham Health last night, and he shared with us that they give us an update each week, each Thursday of each week, and that we can expect to see a fairly significant increase in the cases in Hebron and Marlborough. Andover's in a different health district, so he didn't have those numbers for Andover. But you know, I think if any of you are watching the news, certainly the cases are increasing, and most of the towns at this point, you know, those towns that dropped into the orange or yellow colors are back into the red. It is the variant that is fueling the increase. I'm optimistic in that, again, schools, whether they've been full open or partially open, we've shown ourselves to be doing a pretty extraordinary job of mitigating any spread within our buildings. And I think, you know, those rare buildings or rare areas where a significant number of the people there are vaccinated. So I think we're still in great shape, but yeah, we're definitely seeing a spike of cases in the RHAM community, being fueled by the increases that are happening, you know, around us.
Well, and I think also it's, you know, as you say, you're thinking in terms of the mitigation that we've done. We've been successful. However, we've only been back full time for 3 days now.
Right.
So that reflecting on the hybrid, you know, that seemed to work really well.
Yep.
So hopefully.
Yep, it certainly did. We did. I think all the steps we took have done a remarkable job of keeping everyone safe. So this will really be the test, you know, where we are right now with our full reopening and the increase. And I think if we can continue to do the job that we're doing and make sure that we, you know, minimize any, you know, contact, that will hopefully remain in good shape and keep everybody healthy. Okay.
Scott, any update in terms of testing in the schools? Is that still basically nowhere? Testing
for cases?
Yeah.
There's no state program that brings testing into the school. So
and it's probably kind of late to be, you know, we're in this kind of nebulous area right now, but
correct.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Strusi, do you want to give us a brief update of progress on our full return at the middle school?
So on our full return at the middle school, we have 88% of the students who are returning, which is an increase of somewhere around 5%. We do have students who were totally remote are returning to the building full time. We have about, I think, 46 students or 12% that are still remote. out right now. I know you'd asked about attendance. Attendance right now is around 98% of students attending classes, which is pretty good. Seems to be more aligned with a typical normal year for us. We had big concerns around lunch. I know many people were concerned about what do we do about lunch. Lunch seems to be going very well. Food service has increased the number of stations at the middle school, and we seem to be getting through the lines in about 5 or 6 minutes, 7 minutes. Everybody's getting a lunch, and overall, very happy. Thank you, Kate and crew. I know Kate Caselli's on here somewhere, but thank you to all of them for helping us make this run smoothly. As far as any other mitigation factors, you already mentioned our middle school fund today. We hope to limit that in the future. That's about it.
Right.
I mean, if you ask me how smoothly it's going, I don't want to jinx it, but very well. I think everybody's been pretty pleased. I haven't had any complaints. So far, so good.
Great. Great. Thank you. Mr. Mader, want to give a high school update?
Sure. We have very similar numbers. We have 85% of our students who are in the building every day. The remainder, obviously, who selected the distance learning program. Overall, I think our students have been really excited to get back in the building this week with their friends, with their peers. I know the teachers can kind of echo that. Having a higher percentage of students in the classroom directly in front of them has had a significant impact, I think, already regarding staff and student morale. So I think that's a big deal, and it's something that hopefully will continue to move forward and bring that positivity back to the building. As far as some facilities and precautions and stuff that took place leading up to that, we worked to rearrange desks in classrooms where there were double desks and just redistribute those double desks amongst other classrooms. Some of the classrooms that had maybe smaller student sizes in those classrooms, try to space things out a little bit more throughout the building. We also had some classes that were a little bit larger who were previously scheduled in smaller classrooms. So we were able to rearrange those classrooms and reassign those classes to larger classrooms over the last week or so, prior to our 29th, our Monday opening. Our advisory lunches have been going well. Also, like Dr. Cerruti mentioned, it's more efficient than I thought it would be. One of the things that we put into place was we provided the menu with a whiteboard on the wall so students can have an idea of what they want to select in each one of the locations and keep that line moving as quickly and as efficiently as possible. And it seems like that's going really well. As far as mitigation efforts, we had N95 masks that were distributed to staff leading up to this week and through the day Monday if they wanted them. And as far as student drop-offs with the additional traffic from Rachel, it's significantly busier out there. I think that's for sure. My hat's off to Officer Rivera, who stands in the middle of that. You know, it's hundreds of parents and students every afternoon. The morning is going really well because people are coming in at different times, so it's pretty manageable. We were able to add some additional signage in the parent drop-off loop, just encouraging parents to pull forward all the way so that we can drop off waves of 15 students at a time as opposed to just 1 or 2. And I think that's had a pretty significant impact, keeping it as efficient as possible when dropping off and picking up. So overall, I think that this week's gone, knock on wood, like Dr. Cerruti said, but I think it's gone really well. And it's nice to see a full building, for sure.
Great. Questions? Yeah, Dana?
I just want to throw out there real quick, it's not really a question. There have been some parents who have been dropping off their kids in the senior lot, which backs up the traffic. I'm not sure if like just an email needs to be sent out, but I get to school really early because the parking lot terrifies me. So I'm sitting there at like 6:55, 7 o'clock, and I see like a lot of parents who like pull in, either just completely stop in the middle of the senior lot to let their kids out, or they just park and take up a parking spot when there's a bunch of people behind them trying to get into the parking lot. So I don't know if just an email needs to be sent out to fix that, but it's not the biggest problem, but it's definitely causing a little bit more chaos that doesn't really seem necessary.
Yeah, definitely, Dan. And I've been out there myself in the mornings, just addressing those parents specifically and asking them to use the parent drop-off loop. With that said, it doesn't mean you won't still see some parents, because there are some parents of students with disabilities or kids who are on crutches who we actually ask to drop off there, just because it's a little bit more of a slower environment, gives them the opportunity to use the handicapped accessible spaces and get the kids closer to the door. So
It's not even like up by the door though. It's just in like the middle back of the parking lot,
Okay.
like in the middle rows. Like if
Yeah.
it was up by the very front, that'd be one thing, but it's just not.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll agree with that. I usually get there about between 6:30 and 6:45. I eat my breakfast in the car. Yesterday and today, a parent pulled up with a student in the car next to me and parked in the space next to me, which is in the staff parking in the same lot that she's talking about, where they, kind of finished their coffee or breakfast or whatever, and the student got out and went into the building. So it's definitely happening, throughout that parking lot. It's not just up top where the more disabled students or or students who have any kind of handicaps are getting out.
Yeah, absolutely. We can continue to address it for sure.
Great. Any other questions for Dr. Shirusi or Mr. Mader? Just one other thing I would add is, our planning and responses are not just focused on, the managing how we get to school and mitigation efforts, but we spent a lot of time looking at student grades and trying to make sure that we have programs in place to address what we've seen as a real drop-off in grades for some students. So we are adding additional student supports in in terms of additional academic labs. It's certainly in our faculty meetings been a key focus of our discussions. We modified our grading for the first half of the year and will continue to do so that it limits the if a student fails a quarter, a marking period, that failure is limited to a 50, so that if they get a 30 or a 20 and there's no hope of getting themselves back into a passing grade realm, by limiting how low that F is, certainly helps to support those students. So we're going to continue that through the second semester. And then beyond that, we've been provided, all schools across the country have been provided with a number of grant opportunities. So this is not the money coming from the federal government, the stimulus legislation, which was passed a few weeks ago. But before that was even passed, we were awarded what are called ESSER 2 grant monies. We've received about $126,000. We're using that money. Quite a bit of it is being used to put together summer school programs. We typically have credit recovery programs in the summer that allow students access to online courses to make up for any courses that they may have failed. But we're really finding that online courses alone just aren't going to make it. So we're hiring teachers to work one-on-one with students over the summer so that there'll be a more personalized approach. We're looking to personalize the experience for the students so that we can target what they need to either credit recovery or to make up for lost learning. So we're looking at hiring teachers, school counselors to provide emotional support and encouragement. So that'll happen over the summer. One of the challenges we're looking at is that with more students failing in some areas, we may get kind of a or a lot of students going into certain classes if they needed to retake some classes. So we are using the grant to hire an additional English teacher for next year, which will allow us to better address some of the needs for students that may need to retake some courses. So we are putting quite a bit of really all of our grant monies into student support and addressing some of the learning loss that we've seen and supporting those students who may need to catch up a bit after this long year of remote learning. So that grant money those grants are guaranteed. We just need to complete the necessary paperwork to free up the funds, but we are moving in that direction. Another piece that we're doing in the first grant is providing additional wireless hubs so that we'll have stronger wireless service outside by the picnic tables. So in the high school, in the courtyard and around the kind of the bus loop area of the building, and in the middle school, I think in front of the building and in the courtyard there as well. So we're hoping to use that money effectively to support our students this year and then through the summer and into next year as well. Steve, do you have your hand up?
Yep. So I had a question about summer school opportunities as well. I understand that we're looking to expand teaching staff and whatnot, but there have been some students that I've noticed in the past, in pre-COVID years, that have done well with at-home tutors that have been provided by the school. Has there been any thought about maybe expanding some of those grant monies into looking into try to hire some of those tutors? Maybe it would be more successful to get students to, to accept a more relaxed summer school position.
Mm-hmm. Right now, that's not part of the grant funding. The grant funding, we're really focusing it more on, bringing students into the building and trying to provide a more kind of a traditional experience for students.
Sure.
Okay. So I know Sergeant Rivera, I don't think is with us. Rachel, you certainly kind of gave us some background on some of the parking situations. And I think Mr. Mader, you gave us some updates on traffic. I think, the fact that we're experiencing overnight being inundated with lots of drop-offs, I think, although it certainly has provided some challenges, I think overall, Sergeant Rivera's done a nice job, and Ray and Paul are doing a great job of monitoring the increased traffic. We certainly are seeing a uptick in students taking the bus, which certainly helps with the traffic. I hope as we move through the rest of the year that families become more comfortable with students taking the bus. So hopefully that'll reduce some of the drop-off traffic as well. But that's certainly a work in progress, and we'll continue to pay attention to each of the issues that were raised this morning. Mr. Schlehofer, do you want to give us an update on facilities?
Sure, just have a small update. So we're continuing to keep up with the 3 additional custodians to help with cleaning. The additional desk shields that we ordered for the teachers that requested them have been installed. They were prior to Monday. As Chris has mentioned, ordered N95 masks. I got 1,100 in, actually. We factored 5 per staff member. So those were issued to the offices so that they could be handed out. And then, of course, we're stockpiling wipes, gloves, and hand sanitizers for all the classrooms and common areas. But overall, everything's been going pretty smooth.
Great.
No complaints my way.
Fantastic. And I know, one of the, particularly with desk shields, I mean, there's, I know a lot of districts put a lot of money into investing in desk shields, but the research, well, there was no research at the time. I think the current research that has been done shows that they really don't seem to offer, particularly like having desk shields on student desks, doesn't really provide much of a mitigation benefit. It's really more about air movement and HVAC efficiency. And I know, Mike, we installed the upgraded filters.
Correct.
Yeah, early this year. So I think those areas that have proven to be most effective, we've already kind of been down that road.
Yeah.
I think we're in good shape. Okay. Any questions for Mr. Schlehofer? And Ms. Caselli, how about the all-important lunch?
Sure. So we have had a really great first few days. We were able to hire one new associate. We've added one station to the middle school, and we will be hiring somebody hopefully to start in the next few weeks to make another station at the high school. Previous to this week, we were doing approximately 220 to 240 covers for lunch between both schools. As of today, we are up to 435 with just adding one staff member. My lead cook has been taking times at the stations, and they've been taking less than 12 minutes to get all the folks through. So with our average daily participation in a really good division of the teams where the students are flowing to and collaborating with the principals and that to make a good flow, we've been really successful. The students have been very courteous of one another, even in the cafeteria where it gets a bit busier. They're still going through very quickly. So it's been very successful first week back, and we enjoy being very busy.
Great. Yeah, you were telling me earlier your numbers have gone up pretty significantly, huh?
They're fantastic. And we still are offering the meals for our distance learners, which pickups are just on Wednesdays now, and we still are having about 15 students worth come through, as well as we're offering weekend meals on Fridays as the students go home. That has also gone out to families in a pre-order letter, and I have a good turnout for that as well. So all in all, the numbers are great.
Great.
Wow.
And am I correct? Our plan is to offer lunch for the summer school students and
Yep.
continue to offer lunch for members of our community throughout the summer?
Correct. Throughout the summer. Yeah, we'll be here.
Good. Good. Thank you very much. Any questions on lunch and breakfast, I should add too, right?
Breakfast is also great. Very popular.
Good. Excellent. Thank you. Well, let me open up the floor for any discussion on any topics we haven't covered or any suggestions, concerns.
Scott, in terms of the athletic piece, how does that seem to be? We're looking at high participation numbers again. I know Noah's really thrilled to be back with track and field.
Yeah. No, athletics
How's
are,
that looking? Yeah.
well, we're really back to a full spring program. So students are able to participate during the actual competition and play without their masks. They have to wear masks on the sideline and when they're not engaged. But we are, looking at a much more traditional and what we would all consider a more normal sports season this spring. We're looking at spectators in terms of, I've been talking with Mr. Trudeau, our athletic director, on almost a daily basis about how we'll be able to manage having spectators, which we haven't had. This winter spree was significantly limited number of spectators. We'll be able to open that up a bit. Bus transportation for away games, we're in good shape for that. So yeah, we're looking at a pretty traditional spring season. Yeah, it's really wonderful. Yeah, that's probably going to be the most normal, compared to what we've been looking at. So that's been going great. Other questions, concerns? I'm going to assume the lack of questions is because I think you guys and the RHAM staff has just done such a nice job of making this happen and putting everything in place. I know that, I think Dr. Cerusi, you mentioned, and Mr. Mader, you mentioned that you hadn't been hearing complaints, and I have not either. So I think that it was really a testament to not only this group, but all the planning that we've done and how successful we've been able to keep on top of things, with the exception of parking. But beyond that, I think it's really going great. So, is there anything we haven't talked about that anyone wants to bring to the floor? Great. Well, so in terms of next steps, right now our goal is to hold the course and continue to support our full reopening and keep everyone as safe as we possibly can. I continue to meet weekly with our local Department of Health and the State Department of Health. A number of our nurses and a number of our administrators join in on the Department of Health meetings that are held each week. So we'll be certainly keeping our ears peeled for discussions and any recommendations related to the what's happening across the state with any increasing numbers. But again, I'm hopeful that our mitigation efforts within the school are going to allow us to hold the course and to maintain our current plan of remaining open. I think probably for me, and I'm sure I speak for the students on board and certainly the other administrators, any guidance that we receive for graduation and proms, we're anxious to get so that we can make sure that we can get all those planned and include as many students as possible. Actually, Mrs. Vega Belay joined us and is the senior class advisor. So she probably, when she's not thinking about teaching Spanish, is thinking about nothing other than the senior prom. So we're hopeful. We're hopeful that we'll be able to pull all of those events off, and they may not look quite as normal as they usually do, but the fact that they'll be happening is really wonderful. So if there are no comments, I'll open it up to public comments. Is there anyone who would like to make any comments publicly? Okay, then what I think rather than scheduling another meeting, does it make sense to everybody if we, once we have additional information that's significant, we'll schedule another meeting, or certainly if things around the state get to the point where we're hearing caution from the state and things might change. Certainly, if we hear wind of any changes coming from the state, like they're going to suggesting schools move back to hybrid or do something like that, then I would certainly bring the group back together so we could, use your thoughts to help us plan through that. But I'm hoping that's not the case. So I'm hoping the next time we meet will be simply to update everybody and continue the course that we're on. Great. Well, once again, everybody, thank you very much. Rachel, thank you for joining us today, and we'll certainly take a hard look and address the issues around parking. And thank you, everybody else, for your hard work and for your participation.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Have a good afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.